Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to completely shatter the monolithic stereotype of Brazilian Carnival. Look, when most of us think of this festival, we immediately picture, that one very specific singular image, the glamorous parades, the feathers, the samba. But today, we're exploring its surprisingly deep historical roots, its wild regional diversity, and its really profound role as a vehicle for social resistance. Let's get into it.
Okay, wait, because this is where the story gets really wild. Before the lavish parades, the giant floats, and the televised spectacles we know today, this festival was basically an organized mess. I mean, imagine stepping outside your front door and instantly getting caught in a chaotic crossfire of water buckets, food fights, and people literally rolling around in the mud in broad daylight. Yeah, that was the reality of early Carnival.
You see, humanity has always needed an escape valve. Long before samba was even a glimmer in anyone's eye, the psychological groundwork for modern Carnival was already taking shape. We're talking over 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, where they had these days where social hierarchies were totally flipped, servants literally dressing as kings. This eventually evolved into the Roman Saturnalia, which was a pagan ritual where social rules were just suspended so people could completely let loose. And eventually, the Catholic Church adapted these pagan festivals into one final, massive celebration of pleasure right before the severe 40 days of Lent. This gave us the Latin term Carnevale, which literally translates to farewell to meat.
Fast forward to the 16th century. When the Portuguese landed in Brazil, they imported their own medieval European version of this pre-Lent chaos, and it was known as the intrudo. This was a wild, noisy tradition that basically served as the messy baseline for what would eventually become our modern Brazilian street festivals. Honestly, it was pretty much urban warfare with dirty flour, lemons, and water. And the crazy part? No one, rich or poor, master or enslaved, was safe from being a target.
Now, during the colonial era, you had this super stark contrast. The elite tried so hard to sanitize the whole festival. They were hosting these pristine, candlelit Venetian mask balls indoors, trying to stay completely isolated from the madness outside. But down in the streets, the people were actively inventing a much freer, far more passionate celebration that completely ignored the rigid rules of polite European society.
And this is crucial. The true DNA of Brazilian Carnival formed when those messy, medieval European traditions violently collided with local and imported cultures. Down in the streets, the European intrudo fused with indigenous rituals, like traditional body painting, and most importantly, it merged with the powerful drum beats, dances, and spiritual expressions of the forcibly imported African peoples. Because of all this, early Carnival was heavily frowned upon by authorities. They considered it indecent and subversive. And honestly, it kind of was, because it was this rare, incredibly vital act of social and political resistance. It was literally the one time of the year where the poor could openly mock the rich, the enslaved could mock their masters, and the marginalized could finally step up and become the protagonists.
Part 1. Rio de Janeiro, Samba as Social Resistance.
So, samba was absolutely not born in the glitzy downtown avenues you see on TV. It was born in the marginalized, mostly black, working-class neighborhoods that were geographically pushed high up into the hills of Rio. Isolated from the elite, these communities created their own vibrant cultural ecosystems. Samba became this mischievous, captivating rhythm of survival. But back then, early samba was seen as the music of outcasts, and police harassment was an everyday reality. Literally, just walking down the street carrying a drum could get you arrested for vagrancy. But despite all that intense oppression, the music survived. And in 1928, we see this massive, historic turning point. The very first officially recognized samba school emerged in Rio, and they boldly named themselves Deixa Falar, which translates to "let them speak." What a profound message, right? It transformed everyday neighborhood survival into a highly organized storytelling parade, which laid the direct groundwork for the modern samba drum we know today.
Part 2. Bahia, the electric street rave.
Meanwhile, up in the warm, coastal city of Salvador, Bahia, a totally different revolution was happening. But this one wasn't taking place on a catwalk or a runway, it was happening on top of a moving truck. In 1950, two local musicians named Dodo and Osmar completely unintentionally invented the future of Bahian Carnival. They took this old 1929 Ford Fabica, hooked up their electric instruments to the back, and just drove through the streets, playing for the crowds. That musical makeshift on wheels, it evolved into what we now call the Trio Electric. Now, unlike Rio's tightly rehearsed parades with their strict hierarchical bleachers, the Trio Electric is basically a massive mobile sound system truck. It creates this incredibly inclusive, horizontal tropical rave right under the scorching sun,
Anyone, literally anyone, can follow the truck for free, jump around to the infectious beat of Oxia music, and just soak in that amazing collective vibe.
Part 3. Pernambuco, Tradition and Ancestral Identity.
Now, look at the immense regional diversity when we compare these places side by side. Bahia's flat, wide coastal avenues totally paved the way for massive trucks and electric raves with axé music. But over in Recife, the geography literally dictated the dance. The tradition there demands acrobatic frevo dancing because performers physically had to leap up and down these incredibly steep, narrow colonial hills. It's incredibly physically demanding, and it is absolutely joyous to watch.
In northeastern cities like Recife and Olinda, Carnival is treated as a living, breathing manifesto of cultural identity. There are no bleachers or velvet ropes distancing the crowd from the performers. You are completely inside the carnival. You're walking the streets alongside 4-meter-tall, smiling giant puppets in Olinda, and you're marching right along with over 2 million other people behind the massive Galo de Madrugada rooster float in Recife.
And elements found here, like the heavy thundering drums and the majestic costumes of the Maracutu, they aren't just there for cheering. They are a profound act of living memory and fierce Afro-Brazilian resistance to colonization. When they dance Maracutu, they are actively keeping the history and the legacy of the kings and queens of Congo alive and present today.
Part 4. São Paulo, the urban reinvention.
We also absolutely have to acknowledge São Paulo. It's a massive metropolis that took its own working-class samba grit from the city outskirts and transformed it into a booming, fast-paced reinvention of the festival. Today, São Paulo isn't just playing catch-up or copying Rio, it's reinventing Carnival with its own distinct concrete face. It seamlessly combines these incredibly daring and technologically advanced samba drum spectacles with deeply diverse political and alternative street parties. You'll literally find everything from traditional drumming groups to feminist blocks and even nerd culture parades taking over the city avenues as modern forms of social expression.
Part 5. A global symbol of life and resistance.
As international networks broadcast these massive parades and celebrities flock to the Sambadromes, Brazil finds itself right in the global spotlight. It's a moment where the whole world looks on in awe at the country's boundless creativity and its powerful ability to celebrate life, art, and community, even in the face of intense social adversity. But despite all the immense international fame and commercial success we see today, Carnival at its core remains a celebration built by millions of hands. From sewing the costumes to tuning the instruments, it acts as an essential collective escape valve. It truly is a continuous thread of resistance connecting the ancient past to the modern day.
So, having seen how this festival evolved from ancient pagan chaos into a beautiful, completely diverse act of cultural survival, I have to ask you, which regional carnival calls to you the most? Is it the storytelling samba of Rio, the electric energy of Bahia, or the traditional acrobatic frevo of Pernambuco? Please make sure to leave a like, drop a comment below with your choice, and hit subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so you don't miss our next explainer. Thanks for hanging out with us.